Welcome, everybody, to the Med-Legal Greenroom. I am Sam Frentzas, co-founder of the Driving Force Company, and I'm really excited to introduce to you to Dr. Dawn Kyle, all the way up in Washington, and she's the founder of MedLinx Medical. And I want to make sure I get this correct because this was pretty impressive. This is a powerful growth engine. Providers, attorneys, even vendors across the personal injury landscape get to be a part of. This is like the vetted community for referrals. So it's pretty impressive what you've built here, what you can offer. And we need to let everybody know and in on this because it's extremely powerful. So, Dr. Kyle, welcome to the Med-Legal Green Room.
All right, thank you. I'm very excited to be here, and hello to everybody that's listening. We developed this. It came out of, a lot of things come out of just frustration and pain, right? So as a clinician, when I had my practice, I found a lot of friction when it came to vetting, getting referrals, going back and forth. I needed to talk to attorneys. I needed to meet new attorneys. I had to connect with different physicians just for even one patient case, right? So the doctors and attorneys listening here absolutely know what I'm talking about. And it can be very, unsystematized and clunky, and there's leaks in the system and patients fall through the cracks. And it can be very frustrating experience, especially when you're working with providers from many different practices, nothing's linked together. And so I found that, there had to be a better way, right? And that's where a lot of innovation comes from. So we've taken the best of tech and now AI, and we put it into the relationship style of networking and building your referral networks. As we know, as physicians and attorneys, especially in the personal injury space, you're highly dependent on referrals, right? And you're highly dependent on each other to co-manage patients. So the attorneys, they need the medicals and the care from the doctors for their cases to be the gladiators to go fight for those patients. The doctors need to get insight from the attorneys on some factors about the cases so they can understand what their billing, ratios are, or how they can manage those patients. And then you have all the intermingling of different providers that need to serve that patient, and then getting the VMA studies. So what we've done is we basically use tech to connect. And we've made it easy that you can turn your front desk person or your case manager person or your whoever it is, they can push a button in 6 seconds. They can get that referral over and get referrals back, and also opens up the door to meet new people. So one of the things that we often find in business, and you know this, Sam, I mean, you only have so much bandwidth in the day, right? And there's a kind of a human brain psychology system where we think we know a lot of people, right? We think, oh, I know a lot of people, or I've got my network. But the truth is, if you really analyze it from a marketing perspective, your funnel is extremely small for providers, right? So maybe doctors, I say, how many attorneys do you really know? Oh, we've got 5 or 6 that we deal with. That's like, okay. And then, and that's good, right? But what you're not realizing is that there's a big pie. And I always say it like this. So you see yourself on the moon, let's say, and you look around, we're on Earth. We only see our little bubble, right? We only see us, we see the sky. Okay, we think it's big, but then you go out to the moon and you look at the universe and you go, holy cow, we're just this tiny little thing. And that's how it is from a marketing perspective. When you look at a practice, I often see this little itty bitty space, and they think that they're getting a lot of volume, but they're missing 60 to 80% of the cases around them that they should be getting, because they don't have a system in place and they don't have this kind of tech to connect, really easy, frictionless system to expand that relationship, right? Get to know more, and also to build those bridges quicker. And where this came out of is I had an attorney practice here in Washington, and the one attorney would go around meeting chiropractors personally for coffee, right? Meet coffee, and we like to do that. And I said, how many times are you meeting new chiropractors for coffee to build these relationships? He goes, I probably meet one a week, and I have to do this for about a year. And I thought, holy schmoly, one a week for a year? To build these relationships. And I said, well, how do you know the chiropractor or the doctor that you're dealing with is going to deliver good quality personal injury documentation to you? And he goes, we don't. He goes, we have to take throw a dart on the wall and hope that
Wow.
everything works out. And I go, so how long does it take you to actually vet a doctor, to know that they know PI, that they know that they're going to give you what you need to be a gladiator and fight for that patient? And he says it can take up to 2 years. And I think, how much volume have you lost in 2 years by playing dice with doctors that you don't know? Now, on the reverse side, same theory, the doctors, they want to make sure the attorneys they work with are also going to protect their cases and do well by their patients and all of that. So it's a two-way street. So we're not trying to be elitism here. We're just trying to say, look, just show that you've got some training, show that you've got some credentials in PI, and that also, if you don't, we can help you with our educators to get better at it. We're not trying to make it so nobody can join if they're not like and nobody's perfect. We're always learning. That's why it's called a practice. But what we can do is by coming together with a vetted ecosystem, at least you're playing in the golden pond a little bit easier. So you're more willing to expand your referral network and grow and build your practice. And especially for those of you with the VMA system, you need more referrals. You need more cases coming in the door. And the way you get that is by how? By building those referral relationships outside the zone of where you currently are, right? So those are some of the things that we do.
Yeah, and I think it's pretty interesting because, talking to providers and, oh, I know 50 or 60 attorneys. And it sounds great. And I'm sure they do know them. But how many can you pick up the phone and call? And it always goes back down 4 or 5.
Right. Right.
And then that's the thing. And then it becomes the I'll meet them for coffee, or I meet them at a get together. There's a lunch and learn or something. But where's the follow-up? Where are they at your fingertips? And that's what's missing. And I think that's the other key thing to this thing. They're at your fingertips.
Yeah.
Hey, I got I,
Literally.
I got 50 of them in this ecosystem. I can pick up and boom, it's on my phone. I can call, Peter, Paul, or Mary and get them. Otherwise, you're stuck to your go-to guys.
Right.
You're two or three that it just becomes over and over again, and then you're stuck in that pattern. But yet you meet all these different attorneys and you don't have access to them because who's got the time to do that personal follow-up when they're at your fingertips on the phone? I think that's absolutely powerful.
And the other part of it too, when you really look down at the granular details of who actually pushes that button for referrals, it's not the doctors usually. It's usually not the attorneys. It's usually their front desk assistant, their case manager. So we wanted to make this so easy that Sally at the front desk could easily go, oh yeah, push a button, there's the referral, it goes out, and she doesn't have to stress about finding the email, phone calling, and finding a gatekeeper, things getting lost in the shuffle. And here's a good example, and this was very basic. We have a big person, not a physical therapy practice, that we work with. And there was an out-of-state attorney whose patient moved to our state, and he had no idea where to send his patient. She needed physical therapy, she needed MRI. If VMA was here, she'd get her VMA. And it became this long chain of an email that took probably an hour of each person's time just to coordinate what's her phone number. Da, da, da. It was so ridiculous. I thought, gosh, if you just pushed a button, that would have been done in 6 seconds. So I think also now people are used to tech. They want to use tech. We all want to embrace what we can with AI to make things like admin stuff easier. And this is just another tool that you can add at a very inexpensive rate to be seen and be visible in your ecosystem in your area. It makes sense. I mean, I don't know why wouldn't you want to be in it, and have that opportunity to have someone you don't know reach out and say, hey, I didn't know about your services. I saw you're part of our network. You're part of our club, I call it.
Yeah.
I'd like to meet for, a quick Zoom call. And one of the things we're adding in here is making the ability to connect through video, phone, and everything HIPAA compliant. So you can just literally do it all on the app. You just hit there, you can meet with them, you can book the call right away. You're not going over here and going over there and then having to wait for some event. And for vendors as well, like yourself, that provide the fabulous services that these doctors and attorneys need, because they all need help with their businesses, right? They have a huge wraparound that everybody needs. And you're super supportive, Sam, of helping them understand how to do this, the playbook, how to get patients in the door and their KPIs and all of that. So, the other part of it is that when you have more visibility, you're going to get more clients, right? So you have
Yeah.
a little billboard within our ecosystem so people can see you, learn all about you, and then the vendors that you need are right there. They're easy to access versus how many of you go to an event once a year and you see all these vendors and it's like a fire hose to the face of all these great, and you're like, oh, that's great,
Yeah.
that's great. And then you go home and you're like cards falling out of your pockets and they end up in a drawer. And then you get back to your daily graduate and you never take advantage of that. And then the vendor then now has to email you, call you, and you're like, oh, I forgot even who you are. What do you think the actual ratio of production that comes out of those events is? Maybe one or two, sales for a vendor.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen them. I've spoken at major events, so I see that, and I see the value. And I was going to bring up the vendor part of it because again, you're vetting everybody as well. You're doing that first wave, which I think is important. But rarely do you see the vendor aspect of it, of these other pieces that can help them in their business, of what's lacking. Where, yeah, you're going to an event, you got to go through everybody, or Google online and try to find somebody who's in this ecosystem that somebody has, somebody's used, somebody knows. So I think that's where that community comes in. So if there's a vendor there for marketing, for an example, like, oh, okay, these guys use him and everything, they're in that ecosystem, and they're being used. So I think that's the other piece of this thing. You're saving the doctor, the lawyer, that time of doing the big vetting process. At least there's somebody there that you vetted, others have used, and at least that there's somebody that they can talk to right away.
Exactly,
That we know is
exactly.
going to be helpful.
And we've all had that experience, or at least I for sure did when I had my practice of playing, again, the dart game of marketing companies. Okay, because I only have limited time to kind of and know, is this going to person really good? And they look good online, but who can't look good online these days? Do you
Yeah,
really know, are they going to do it? And I can tell you story after story of doctors that have wasted valuable money, but worse, time with bad marketing companies that don't do what they're supposed to do. They look good on the surface and they do these superficial things. But the truth is, when you understand marketing like I do and you look under the hood, you realize they're turnkeying everybody, they're copying everybody else's ads, and they're making you think they're doing a good job for you. And then 3 months later, $20,000 later, you go, this is terrible. I'm not even getting my return on my investment. And
yeah,
that's the problem, right? And I experienced that myself. So with our vendors, as you said, we vet them. We're going to be asking those questions. We can take the time to do the deep dive on them, whereas busy practitioners don't have time to vet an accountant, a wealth manager, a this, or that, that you need for your business systems, and then just your clinical skills, right? You need to have access to good coaches that you can rely on and people like that. So it is a very big ecosystem that we live in the medical arena and the legal arena. It's a very big system, and it needs a platform where everybody can talk to each other a little bit easier. And a lot of people go to LinkedIn and all that, but I don't know if you've been on LinkedIn lately. It's turning into like YouTube. It's hard to navigate. You get lost in all the ads and you get lost in all these posts, and it can be confusing. I think it's a great resource for sure. But for a doc who's busy is like, I just need to get this referral over to an attorney. I don't want to go through all this LinkedIn stuff and try to find somebody. And remember, on the legal side too, on the attorneys, they also want to make sure that you guys are delivering the documents that they can do so they can, be gladiators, I call it, and fight for those patients. And sometimes they need to also learn about what's the new things you're doing. So they have more power to understand the medicals.
yeah,
So how do we link that? We do that through education. And in the platform, one of the things we're bringing is instant education. So they can just hit a button, get a little snippet of knowledge, versus having to wait for some event to go to. Everybody needs instant knowledge these days. You need to move faster. There's a lot to learn. And so our vendors like yourself, Sam, you can put these learning bites in there so they can get to understand what you offer faster and quicker and share it with their friends and things like that. So, I could go on and on about it. There's a lot of things but the net is this. Number one, you need speed to the lead, right? You can't have any friction when it comes to your lead gen. You need to get those leads. And if they're coming from different sources, it can be very clunky. Here's an example. I have an auto dealership that sent us 3 referrals. That auto dealership never would have sent those referrals out if they did not have a system in place and know who to go to and send these to. These were injured people that this auto dealership got. They were unattached cases. Attorney never would have probably got them. He mainlined them to us because he's in our ecosystem. So remember, these leads don't just come from attorneys, right?
No.
That's only a small portion of where your referrals come from. They come from your PCPs, but they also come from the auto dealerships that deal with collision. They come from the tow truck drivers. They come from other sources than where we all tend to think is up here. And what's happening is you're missing out on that. I mean, just think about the volume you could get if you had pieces of all of that underneath your medical referral system. It's pretty intense.
Yeah, and I'm going to steal that line. Yeah, speed to your lead. So
Yes. Feed to your lead, exactly, and tech to connect. That's the way we do it now. Look at us all on Zoom. And then one last thing I'm going to talk about is everybody's interested in KPI and ROI, right? So KPI and ROI. So if you are advertising for personal injury leads, right? Injured people that need this. If you're advertising, this is probably for more of the med legal attorneys, your cost per lead is so high, and you're competing with every other attorney with a billboard and throwing all this money in there, right? So you're only getting 15% of the market. We know from data that only 15% of people go to the internet or billboard to secure their attorney. Where do they really go? They go by word of mouth and referral. That's where they really go, where the doctor says, hey, I know this attorney, and send him over. So your organic is actually more significant than your paid. But a lot of people default to paid ads, which rightfully so. I'm a big fan of paid ads. I love them. But you're missing out on a ROI because now you're spending $1,500 per lead that could turn into something. Whereas if you just had contacts with like 80% or 75% of the people around you that are holding onto these leads, that's a zero cost for a referral, right? There's
yeah,
no cost involved. And when you start stacking how much you're paying, I mean, there's attorneys spending 100,000 a month on lead gen to the internet and competing with all those little crumbs when you've got a robust system. So what we want to do, we wanted to take the system of paid ads and put it into the organic and treat organic just like paid ads. It's got a system, it's got ROI, it's got KPI tracking, it's got a function in it, just like you do paid ads. When you do that, you can imagine how many referrals you'll get when you have a system in place for that. So that's my one last thought on that.
you know what I like because then there's an ecosystem in place. So then once you start using it, you go back and use it because then again, you have everything you need at your fingertips and that ecosystem grows. So then you're able to go back and forth with the referrals. Because again, once you have it at your fingertips, you're going to want to use it. Just
Yeah.
like an iPhone. It's never, right?
Yeah,
Never farther than
absolutely.
8 inches away from you.
Exactly. And now again, because we're a newer launch, we've got some iterations coming along. So right now we have what we call charter member pricing, super, inexpensive. And obviously we do a deal for those in the VMA system as well and friends with Sam, because we want to grow our network and help you guys, help each other, right? That's what we're all here to do.
Absolutely. So
And
how do
the
they get to you? So how do they what's the call to action here
yeah.
to take advantage of this?
So right now it's real easy. You just go ahead and book in the link below. There's a little booking link, and we'll do a little free consult, kind of analyze where you're at and see if this makes sense for you. And if it does, then it takes only 5 minutes to sign up. It's just an e-finger sign and a thing. We build your profile for you. And then you basically turn it on to who is your point person in your business who wants to get the referrals and who's in charge of the connections. They'll start getting SMS messages and they'll get emails to notify them on the platform to go there and check. Later, our iteration, it'll be where it pops up on your phone. So it's really easy to sign up. This is not hard and it's not complex. And you're not going to have a big sales pitch. There's really nothing to pitch.
Right.
So
Other than the referrals.
yeah, exactly, exactly. So, and then one thing we're adding to is forward facing so that people that are looking for injury care centers and looking for VMA specifically will be able to find you and then book with you as well. So there's a lot of education we're doing with the public that will be coming up as well, because when the public demands this, right?
Yeah.
And they're looking for this, then that's going to drive even more referrals and the doctors getting on board, that can be a good referral source for your VMA.
Yeah, and I like the trust factor there because once the attorneys and the doctors start working with each other, they know exactly who to go back to and who to work with. That's again going to work well with each other. Nobody likes a bad apple, that is for sure, especially in the PI world.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
Perfect.
Yeah.
I appreciate it. So listen, everybody, click the link below, get registered. This is absolutely fantastic. Dr. Don Kyle, thank you so much for being on our podcast. And everybody, don't forget to click the link below.
Thank you.
Got it. Thank you.